Lesson 14. Realize that not everything impacting a person's life is about their autism. Ted Carr, who we lost about a year ago, who was a fabulous professional in the field of autism and behavior and a mentor to many of us. I remember the first time I heard Ted Carr speak, and he stood in front of the audience, and he was a very unassuming man. And he said to the audience, he goes, I've come to realize that the happier people are, the better they behave. So instead of focusing on behaviors, when we talk about an individual, when we sit down to develop a program, the two questions we should be asking are, where are we heading with this individual? And how do we improve their quality of life? Okay? And I think that we have to realize the importance of self-esteem and acceptance. We always include in our trainings panels of individuals on the spectrum. And one year, there were folks who asked our panel of individuals on the spectrum, what made the biggest difference in your life? And they said it was the acceptance of their family. Okay? I want you to know, and I understand, I truly understand, and the importance of us to continue to look at what's causing autism. I understand the importance of us to figure out how to help out individuals with autism. But what I don't want us to do is to use the word cure in a way that gives our folks on the spectrum the message that they are diseased and damaged. Okay? And I think the other thing is that, perfect behavior should not be a prerequisite for a meaningful life. I think that people will behave better if they have a meaningful life. And so I think that should be our focus. And too often what we do is we say, we can't do this until they're perfect. So lesson 15 is that I've learned that those of us who are professionals are just fleeting passengers in the lives of individuals on the spectrum. Their families are there in the long haul. My mom, who you saw on the screen, has been in a wheelchair for about 10 years now. Soon after that picture was, or about 10 years after that picture was taken, because that was my college graduation picture. My brother and I, with my family, I'm surrounded by a very large family in Chicago, have decided to keep her in her own home. And we have so many people coming in and out of the house that we had an elderly neighbor ask us if she was dealing drugs. It's only a little bit of what you all feel, but I realize that the impact this has had on my entire family, every time we plan a vacation or every time, as I'm here, I'm still getting calls. Okay? And I think that too often we separate people from their families. And I would suggest to you, for those of you who are consultants, what I would ask you to do is that when you consult on behalf of a child on the spectrum, look at the whole family. Sometimes our recommendations need to be things like respite care. Sometimes our recommendations need to be, Mom and Dad, you need to go out on a date. Sometimes our recommendations need to be about the siblings getting some attention and focus. And while that is really hard, we have to realize the impact this has on the entire family. So some of the examples of long-term strategies include natural supports, circles of friends. We've done a lot of work with circles of friends in our state. We have one young man that the first time I met him, he was kind of tearing up a hotel room, and we formed a circle of friendship around him, and he's now in high school. When he was in middle school, he went to the school dance, and his mom said, I never dreamed he would go to the school dance. So his brother dressed him so that he didn't look like a 40-year-old woman going to the school dance. And so then some friends, some of the children, other students' parents said, we're going to take him to the dance. You guys go out on a date and just have an evening. And the parents said, they left their house and drove immediately to the school and found a window where they could look into the gym to see what was going on. Yeah. Later on that night when he came home, and they noticed he was dancing and having fun, and later that night when he came home, he came up to his mom and he says, Mom, he says, those girls told me I sure know how to shake that thing my mama gave me. What'd you give me? So we've still got some work to do. Families that are linked to community resources. And unfortunately in these economic times, these resources are becoming much more scarce and difficult to access. But I think it's also an enviable life. And again, acceptance and improved self-esteem. Giving people a life that any of us would envy, and for the families to have an enviable life is something that we need to focus on. Lesson 16 is that when we develop plans for families and when we look at families, we need to develop plans that are realistic for the conditions in which individuals live and work. Too often we place families in the position where we're expecting them to be robotic professionals that don't have other things that are going on in their lives. I'm giving you permission to have a life. I'm looking at some of the families that I've known who have been in this for the long haul, and they've made it in the long haul because they have had lives. Okay? And I know that it's been very difficult at times. There was a parent who called me one time, and she had been told by somebody that she was to reinforce her son with an M&M every 5 minutes that he was good and never lose track of time. She took a shower. 15 minutes later, she comes out of the shower and realizes she'd messed up. And so she called the behavioral expert who said, "You have probably lost your child forever." Okay? And when I talked to her, I said, it's a good thing that you didn't do that because he would have been 4 and obese with acne. You have to think about the context in which individuals live. So lesson 17 is, how do we measure success? I don't think that there is a standard measurement. I think it's different for all of us, how we measure success. And I think that that's the journey we need to go on with individuals, is to measure that success individually instead of having kind of a norm that we say this is how we get to success. What you have to understand is that autism is a community issue. And until we make it a community issue, we will limit the opportunities our folks have. Okay? It is not about autism programs. It is about universal design and good schools for all kids. I've been involved with the National Professional Development Center, and I hope that you'll have a chance. I think that Sam Odom and Ann Cox, who speak about this, you'll go to their session. We've been working in a school in Indianapolis, and I will tell you, unfortunately, a child with autism had been tasered at that school. Liz, you know that school well. And the school said, we're in trouble. And so they became part of this grant, and the principal bought into it. And now 2 years into the grant, they are a model school for all kids. They have adopted, Carrie Dunbarone, if you are here, they have adopted visual supports school-wide for everyone in that school. And you know what they found? And they've adopted other evidence-based practices. Acceptance of students who are different has increased. Bullying has decreased. Disciplinary problems have decreased. Suspension and expulsion has decreased. This has become a better school for all kids. Okay? And ultimately, if we can make better schools for all kids, then we can start making better communities for all kids. Healthcare is not an autism issue. This is a community issue. Hopefully you will have the ability now to not have caps put on what you can be reimbursed. That autism will not be considered a pre-existing condition. But we have to fight with other communities to make sure that these rights happen. Autism is not about having autism jobs. This is about corporate initiatives and about employment. And our colleagues from AMC are here who have taken on that challenge, as many other companies have, Walgreens and others, to say, we know this is a valuable workforce.